I found to be extremely effective and why I meditate every day is because it helps me to clear whatever has been a stressor of any kind. So stress drops, I'm calmer, and I have more clarity. And for me, one of the biggest gifts was to be able to distinguish my energy from other people's. As a doctor, in serving people and working with people in pretty severe conditions, to be able to distinguish that was really healing for me.
Welcome to the Health Conscious Living Podcast. I'm Dr. Gayle Myers, integrative medicine physician. The purpose of this show is to teach you the same framework I've used to help heal myself and hundreds of others. We'll cover lifestyle health habits, meditation, and mindset topics to unlock your potential for optimal living and thriving.
Welcome to the Health Conscious Living Podcast. I'm Dr. Gayle Myers, and today my special guest is Julia Harrell. Julia is a clairvoyant and spiritual guide who helps highly sensitive people, empaths, and intuitives to overcome their sensitivities, heal themselves, and thrive. She studied clairvoyance for the past 30 years. And since 2008, she has guided thousands of students through professional readings, healings, and teachings. She now witnesses miracles weekly as her students wake up to who they truly are and begin to understand their purpose. I met Julia in 2006. We've studied with the late Michael Tamura and have been in his advanced meditation community since 2006. So welcome, my dear friend, Julia Harrell.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
This is great. Well, Julia, let's talk about both of our journeys. And I want to start with you. How did you get into studying clairvoyance, and how did you get on your spiritual path to begin with?
Yeah, well, let me start with the spiritual path to start with, because I went through school doing music. And so I just music all day long. People don't realize it's pretty intensive, like a 5-year plan I did in 4 years with the double major and then the master's. Once I was finished all that and I kind of had time to breathe, I was looking all around for where's my group? Where's my spiritual thing? So I'm looking at churches, because I lived in Dallas at the time, and you just throw a stick, you're going to hit a church. So I tried that. And then this was the 80s and 90s when self-help was coming out. So I just gobbled up every book I could. This is before the internet, you guys. So I had to read a book. And I actually remember one day going to get the favorite bookstore that I like to go to had these booths around the outside with sound healing. And I thought, oh, that makes sense to me. Let me try that out. And I remember just having a really big opening one day while I was in one of the sound healing booths. And I experienced it first that time stopped. There was no time in there. The person came in, it was supposed to be an hour appointment. And I'm like, hey, you're jipping me. That was just in there 10 minutes. He's like, no, that was an hour. And as a professional musician, I was playing clubs every night, teaching during the day. And I was playing my show that night. And I was just really getting into it and kicking it and stuff. And the saxophone player in front of me turns around and he's like, what got into you? I was able to bring out more of who I was. So before that, I was holding back. I'm a drummer. I'm supposed to be kicking it, but I was holding back. And that was a big opening for me to see how quickly you can change your energy to open up to really what you truly are. It was a while before I found the clairvoyant stuff, but that was the first opening, I would say.
And a drummer, so very physical.
Yes.
And yet very whole body.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So now we both meditate every day. So how did you go from drumming and in the music scene to meditating?
Yes, I was always spiritually curious. I never gave myself the time to delve into it, because when you're in school, you're just like the next paper, the next paper, the next concert, all of that. So it was, again, after school had finished, and then I started to have time to look around and go, well, who am I really, and what am I doing? And there was a moment when I was living in Dallas. I was very successful at the time, teaching all day long in one of the top music schools in the area. And they just won all the awards all year long for everything. It's really top musical school. And then I was playing at night, every night. And actually the symphony member, the principal of the symphony, invited me to a position teaching college. And I always thought I would teach college. I did later, but at the time I was offered this position. I thought, yeah, but then I had this realization that that's not my path. If I go down that path, I'm going to be taking a turn that's not true to me. And everybody around me would have said, oh, that's what you do. You go to school, you go to school, you go to school, then you teach, and that's it. But I knew there was something else inside me, and I had to find that language. And I ended up coming to California, and I'm still playing music. Now I'm playing rock clubs, what I really wanted to do. So I'm playing these rock clubs all around San Francisco, and it's a party scene, right? You get paid in beer sometimes, part of the door. And it was that internal knowing, like when I turned down that teaching job in Dallas, that this is not me. This is not what I'm here to do. In my head, I'm seeing like yoga and meditation and all this stuff, but it seemed so far away. And it was a decision one day that just, this is not me. I'm not on my path. And I put away the partying. I kept drumming. But as soon as I put away the partying, immediately I found meditation. And I was living in a small town on the coast side in Half Moon Bay. And this young man ends up moving in right next door. And he had this series of books that was like a ancient teaching, spiritual teaching. And I remember opening the book and I went, this is the stuff I've been looking for. I've been looking in all the churches and reading the books and self-help and all this. And I was like, oh, this is the stuff. This makes sense. And I did that practice for about 5 or 6 years. Then I found the clairvoyant training. The thing about the earlier practice was it's very technical. It's like there's a lot of steps and everything. And it's also service to humanity based. You sit at home, you meditate quietly, and you align with this other beings and other energies, and you basically kind of give blessings. I loved it. It was perfect. But meanwhile, I didn't know anything about myself. I was just going out, 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 out. And I didn't know it, but I was pretty spaced out at the time. You mentioned I'm physical. I am very physical and energetic, and I love a lot of sports and stuff. But sitting to meditate, I would just, whoop, I would leave the body, and I didn't know it. A friend of mine gave me a reading, and that's when things really shifted to a daily practice at that point. Because in that reading, I felt seen and heard for the first time. I felt like she really saw my core, like not the persona we put out or, dress up on stage or, the teacher or whatever, but it was like she could see my insides, and that really shifted everything. And I started taking classes with the clairvoyant training thinking, I'm not clairvoyant, but I'll try this stuff. And it shifted everything. It was night and day from just consuming spiritual information and reading about things to actually starting a daily practice. Night and day difference. And I'm sure you found that as well.
I did. I had been, I started with having dreams when I was 13 because I grew up in a very scientific environment. And my father was a doctor, and I read his medical text when I was 7 years old, and everything was science. And I knew I was supposed to be a doctor. That was my calling, and I knew it. But at the age of 13, I started having these dreams. I'd meet people, and then I'd meet them. And it kept happening. And then I'd dream situations would happen, and I would dream a situation, and then it would happen. And what was so amazing about that was that in each of those dreams, I was taken care of. Like, it wasn't so much in the meeting people. That was really cool. And it was really like, whoa, that's wild. And it was the 60s, and I didn't really have anybody to talk to. So it just kept like, wow, it's just like, this is really strange and really amazing, but here it is. And so then when I was 21, so I really started my spiritual path after my mother passed away when I was 16. And actually, I was 17, and she passed, and it was sudden, and it was an abrupt change, obviously, and a very massive passage in my life, but it woke me up to spirit. I had a sense of peace about it, and I had a sense of knowing that I couldn't put my finger on, but I just knew it was okay. So then, when I was 21, I started seeing auras around people. I started seeing these fields of light. And I was like, what is this? And I thought it was my nearsightedness, because everything's fuzzy when you don't have your glasses on. But that wasn't it. I had my contacts in, and I was seeing this, and it didn't go away. So that was the beginning. And it goes on from there. I end up going to medical school. I went to see a psychic who told me, you're going on for medical school. And I said, no, I'm not. I'm going to study botany. And she said, oh, yeah, you are. You're going. And nothing's going to stop you. And so sure enough, within 3 months, I was in medical school. And during that time, I kept reading everything I could about spirituality, because that was my go-to for peace and comfort.
Yes.
Because the external world was wild. It was a wild ride. And I needed that centering. And I had studied with this teacher who taught a lot of esoteric things, but I'd never really learned how to ground and how to be in my body in terms of just being present.
Yeah, same.
So when a patient came in and he said, you need to read this book by Michael Tamura called You Are the Answer, I started reading it. And I remember thinking, this man knows how to talk to people's souls, and I want to meet him, and I want to study with him. And 2 months later, he was in Vermont, and he had never been. And that was the beginning, because the first time I sat in that class and I grounded, that was the change. It was like, oh, like you said, I've always been up here, like I've always been out there, but to be here and to be present, very different. My life changed that day. And I remember him saying, if you could see what I could see, you would not think of not taking a shower for 40 years. Meaning energetically, and all the things that we carry, all the unresolved. And I thought, yeah, I get it. And so that was the beginning of studying with Michael in 2004. And then you and I met in 2006. So it's been a journey of studying, of growth, of just, as Michael would say, living the miracle.
Yes.
Because when we connect with spirit and who we are and our true self, everything changes. And what I found fascinating about studying with Michael is because I was a medical doctor and I needed somebody who was going to really understand spiritual anatomy, and he had been a nurse. And so I needed that combination, that I could have spirituality and medicine together to understand, because I was on a mission to understand, what is this and how does it work? So here we are today.
And then he's also a musician.
Yes, that's true.
And so I got to relate to him on that level.
Yeah. Yeah. So here we are, 20 years later or so, and we meditate every day. So before we get into being a spiritual teacher and clairvoyant teacher, let's talk about meditating every day and what it means to us and why we do it. So why do you meditate every day?
When I started the clairvoyant training back in late 90s, it was such a game changer to feel like I have my own. One of the things that helped me realize I have my own power, where all before I was thinking I was powerless, like behind the drums, not being, fully expressive. I had tools now and technique. And before it was just kind of amorphous. It felt like, do this meditation. And back then, again, you guys, it's before you had an app. So you had to read a book and so a line here, a line there. Okay, do this. Okay, do this. Okay, So that's how it started. But through the techniques and stuff, which is fun and easy, I learned that I can change my surroundings. I can change my approach to life. If I felt less than before, I can feel more powerful. And the grounding and so forth can be used to projects, for all sorts of things. I remember when I took the first couple classes of meditation through the clairvoyant training, and I was learning this stuff, and I thought, oh, this is great. I got to keep going. But the next class is clairvoyance, and I'm not clairvoyant, so that's for them. But I wanted to get to the transmedium stuff at the other end, get to that later. But I finally knew that I needed to do that. And my whole thought was, okay, I'll learn these skills, but I'm still going to do this service-based meditation and just at home, quiet by myself, not bothering anybody, and I'll play music. And there were tools like, I knew I had to take that training, but it was expensive. In the 90s, early 2000s, it was like $2,400. That's a lot of extra cash to have on hand. And I was a studio director at the time. And I knew I needed to take the class. So I thought, well, I'll use these tools that they teach us to ground the space. And they said that it'll work out. If it's on your path, if you're aligned with this, then it'll work out, right? So I thought, well, got nothing to lose. I made a decision first. That's my next step. I need to take this training. I don't have that much cash to throw down. So I'm going to sit and meditate and ground and see what happens. The money flew in and then some. So the money for the whole year was there, plus enough to buy me a big fat motorcycle to get there and back every day.
That's hilarious. That's great. So I think we need to back up a little bit for the audience and talk about clairvoyance, right? So clairvoyance means seeing clearly, right? It's not about predicting the future, which a lot of people think, right? It's about seeing from the eye of spirit, the eye of wholeness. And it's an ability that we all are born with. Psychic is the root word of psychic means of the soul. And we're all souls, so we have these abilities, right? We come in with it. Think about it when you were a little kid and things that you saw or things that you could hear that or you knew. And then it was kind of washed over or, discredited or, it's like, well, and then we start to shut it down. And of course, I dove right into science. And that was my go-to. And I see now that, I needed the parallel. And so you landed in clairvoyant class, and lo and behold, you found out that yes, absolutely, you could see.
They kept telling me that, and I thought, no. These people are telling all these grand stories, and it's this color, and that's going on, and this is going to happen. And I'm like, I don't want to know anybody's future. I just want to meditate and be in my own little space here, and play some music. So they kept telling me that, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know. It turned out I had a lot of filters in the way. So they taught me how to clear those off, and then I was like, now I get it. It was through the exercise of seeing that then I could understand the lessons. Where before, when I'm reading all these books and I'm just kind of thinking about things spiritually, I wasn't really having the lesson. I wasn't really understanding and seeing and knowing. I was thinking about it. And those are different. I've learned now those are really different spaces. And yeah, these techniques, I would have never sought out clairvoyant. It's almost like it needs rebranding. It's accurate. Clairvoyant.
So we could say seeing the truth of yourself and letting go of the unresolved and the filters the labels that we gave ourselves along the way.
Sure.
And the decisions we made about our experiences that really no longer serve us. So we could rebrand it that way. I think that's a great plan, because really that's what we're all doing in personal development and spiritual self-development, and really connecting to who we truly are. Just like you said, when you had that healing, the sound healing, and then you sat down and you started drumming and whoa, the drummer came out.
Yeah.
So now it's inspiring to be able to share this with people.
I feel like that's what led me to teaching. Was the teachers would always say, through the exercise of reading, because I really resisted sitting down and doing readings as part of the training. I'm like, that's future predicting, psychics, crystal balls and stuff. I'm not interested. And they kept saying, no, this is it's training. You're learning. And there's technique for everything. So I thought, all right, I love being here. I love these people, and I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm expanding, I'm happy. And I'm learning more and more, but it was really true that when I started reading something, you see your match in another person, right? And all in the world, we have somebody comes up and it shows us, oh, I'm like that too. But in reading, I could be in a really neutral space to see somebody's going through a hard time or whatever, and you can see all of what's going on that got to there, what's going on with the other person and stuff. Through seeing that, I could understand myself more deeply. I could let go of old limits that I was holding on to. All the lessons started to make sense through the practical application of reading. I never expected that to happen. And then I was just having so much fun, and I've been in training for 30 years now, you guys. So you think I'd get there, but no, there's more to learn. And through that, and after a while, it's like, I love teaching anything I love doing. Music, drumming, scuba diving, anything I enjoy doing, I'm going to teach it. And so it was only natural that I've been doing this for so long, and it's changed my life so dramatically that I want to teach other people how to do it as well.
I think what's fascinated me so much about reading and seeing my own filters or mental image pictures that are ready to go, that beyond that is the truth of what lies underneath it, within, right there, pushing it out, like letting it go so that the true person can be in the world. And so that's for me, one of the most fascinating parts of this. And, we talk about, we would call it a matching picture. In neurobiology, we would call it mirror neurons, where we have these brain cells that sense and see and hear and feel what the other person's doing as we relate to it. So it's all there. So then how do you manage that in the world? And so one of the things that I found to be extremely effective, and why I meditate every day, is because it helps me to clear just the filters and the whatever has been a stressor of any kind. So stress drops, I'm calmer, and I have more clarity. And one of the biggest gifts was to be able to distinguish my energy from other people's, because, as a doctor in serving people and working with people and people who have had trauma or in trauma and in pretty severe conditions, to be able to distinguish that was really healing for me. And I'll give you a quick example because I know that's part of your gift is working with sensitives. Because we're all picking up on it. It's just a matter of what do you do with it and how does it affect you? So the other day we were out shopping and we were in a kitchen store and the woman who was helping us was really cranky. She just was having a bad day and they were having a sale. So the place was packed and I was asking questions and she was just like exasperated with me. And so I left and I said to my husband, wow, she was really cranky. I could feel myself getting cranky. And then I was like, wait a minute. So I sat down and I said, okay, I don't need to take her energy on and I don't need to be cranky. And so I let it go because I realized, maybe she's not feeling well. Maybe she's just having a bad day or somebody she knows is sick and she's got something going on that she's overwhelmed. And she just wasn't real patient with me. But I don't have to shift from having a nice Sunday to having a cranky afternoon. And so that's one of the gifts for me is to be able to really shift gears, like you said, pretty fast.
I had a similar thing happen just recently. So many things happen on a plane, it seems like for me. But I was coming back, I was headed back home and I'm excited to get back home. I've been gone a while and ready to go. I always ground my trip, and I get on the plane. I'm excited. We're getting ready for the takeoff. And I love the takeoff because it feels like a roller coaster where you get smushed back. Like that's my favorite part. So I'm excited. Here we go. And then all of a sudden this wave of anxiety, fear, just washed over me. And I'm like, whoa, it was undeniable. I've always been really sensitive, that's one of the clairs abilities to sense energy. But even though I had tools, I was kind of blown away by that, all this wave of fear. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not afraid of the takeoff. That's my favorite part. And then I thought, well, is the plane going down? No, I don't think so. And then I check in, is this my fear or is it someone else's? Oh, it's someone else's. And then I kind of tune in. Oh, it's this lady's right here. She's afraid of flying and she's whatever she's going through. And so using these tools, I was able to just clear it out in like no time. Now that takes practice, but I was really amazed by how powerful that wave of anxiety was. And even though I have tools and I kind of pull my energy in on a plane and stuff, but you can shift it in a minute too. That's a big part I like to help people with now. Highly sensitive people, empaths, intuitives, where we accidentally pick up energy around us. Sometimes because we're curious, like how many of us are magnets for somebody in distress? You obviously are as a doctor. Yes. But I would experience that even in grad school, in music school. The person with trauma drama would show up. Hey, Julia, what do I do? I'm like, now I have skills.
Yes. So then there's, we're healers because we are here to serve. And I love watching people heal. I just love it. I mean, that's my joy in life is watching people heal. And so for me, when I started teaching these tools and the grounding, watching people ground for the first time and watching them really, it's so experiential because you think about grounding and you think about walking outside or, do you put your feet on the ground or no, this is a different type of grounding. And it's an energetic grounding for the whole body and an energy field to the center of the planet. And it works as an anchoring and an energy processor, which is really helpful. And when they ground for the first time, it's just like, oh, and they're home. They're home in themselves, in their home, and it's like it's safe. And that to me is just one of the biggest gifts that we share in what we do. And so my experience with that, I've had so many, but one of the experiences was going to New York, because I had to go to New York to see a dentist, a special dentist, and that was anxiety producing enough. But then I had to go to New York to do it, and I was like, I have to go to New York. And New York, I always vibrate when I go to New York. It's like it's so intense, but I knew how to ground. And when I got there, I was like, oh, this is different. And I had the most magical time. And every time I've been, it's been really magical. Because what happens when people are around someone who's centered and calm is that they start to calm down, right? So the lady next to you on the plane got to have a nice calming moment. So that's really lovely. Well, let's talk about the spiritual awakening that we're in, as we're about to go into, we're in the eclipse season now, and we're about to go into the solar eclipse coming up. So talk about the spiritual awakening on the planet.
Oh, good one. Yeah. I'm not an astrologer, so I don't have that information. Somebody else can cover that. I can tell you what I see and experience for myself and working with other clients is that it's like a big up-leveling of like the wind at our sails right now to push us, propel us up to a newer, higher state of being. And in order to do that, it's also bringing up any limits, like sandbags on a hot air balloon. You're getting ready to lift up. Is there some old limiting belief here? Like, oh, I can't do that. Or, oh, I need to do this other thing first. Or that's for somebody else. Or I'm not ready. I'm not worthy. Judgment. Or there's some patterns in our life that maybe can't be at that higher level. So I'm seeing those come up a lot right now. So it seems like there's a bigger shift here available, like a wave. And if we're tuned in, then we can ride that wave and go to the next step, or we can fight it in the undertow, which would be the body personality or the part of us that's going, no, I want to stay here and have Netflix and ice cream. And I don't want to shift or change anything. I want it all the same. And I just feel like what I'm noticing is things are coming up where people are looking at their lives and going, okay, I got a solid job, but there's something else. They're looking for something else, a connection to something bigger, maybe a community or something. So it reminds me actually of the 60s of, like there was, to me, it was like there was a big love energy coming to the planet and waking people up, and people were coming together in communities and things like that. So this seems like another wave of that, don't you think?
Yes, in the harmonic convergence. I remember the harmonic convergence and going to the beach in New Jersey when I was a resident and with a group of women. And it was a very special time. We watched the sunrise that day on the beach, and it was really lovely. And that was I could feel a opening, that there was an opening coming. And here we are. So what's your favorite part of teaching?
Watching people wake up, watching them get excited, and watching them realize more of who they authentically are. Because so often we think, okay, if I have this job title, that's who I am. Or if I'm a mother, that's who I am. Or, a partnership, or, we put these labels on ourselves. But when they start to really see who they are at the core, on the inside, that's a magical moment. I love seeing that.
They start to shine their light brighter and brighter.
Yes.
And rejoice in it. I mean, there's such a good sense. It's a sense of fulfillment that doesn't come in other ways. There's something.
Is that your favorite as well from teaching?
For me, yes. But and for me, it's just watching people ground for the first time and just get to that place, because it's like, oh, I'm here. This is familiar, yet unfamiliar. Mm-hmm. And it's a new beginning. And so it's amazing to watch people in that space because they become so much more of themselves, but they can problem solve and come up with creative solutions and creative ideas and have more fun, and life is lighter. There's a lightness about life that, you're not taking it quite so seriously. You're not taking yourself quite so seriously. So that for me is my favorite part.
Yes.
Well, this has been wonderful, Julia. What's one thing you'd like to leave the audience with today?
Be yourself. To tune in and see and know truth for yourself. We get carried away with that person on TV says I should be like this. The advertisement for marketing products says I need to be like this. The teacher said I need to be like this. I would say be yourself. Tune in, see and know who you really are.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. I love that. So thank you for being here and being who you are in the world. And so where can people find you?
JuliaHarrell.com. I'm on all the socials, Julia Harrell Spiritual Guide. So you can find my reels. I had little teaching vignettes on the reels on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and all that. And there's a free class on my website for sensitive folks. So come try it out.
Okay. Well, thank you. And all that will be in the show notes. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Gayle.
I hope today's episode helped you adopt more tools to implement daily. Choose change, look within, see your inner wisdom already exists, and live your optimal health. If this inspires you, I invite you to share this on your favorite social platform, share it with a friend, or just help us spread the importance of health-conscious living. For more health lifestyle tips, check out healthconsciousinc.com, sign up for my email, and follow me at Gayle Myers MD on Instagram. Hit the subscribe button. I'd love for you to give a 5-star review and leave your comments or questions. Until next week, rejoice in the health that you have.